Imagine a peaceful Virginia cul-de-sac bathed in the warm glow of sunset children, pedaling home sprinklers painting rainbows in front yards, the hum of cicadas drifting through the air. A sleek black sedan cruised along at a careful 20, its driver eager to end a long day. Behind the wheel sat a distinguished Special Forces veteran, a Purple Heart recipient whose decades of service carried him from combat zones to federal advisory boards in Washington. He'd spent the afternoon in closed-door meetings and strategy sessions, and now all he wanted was a quiet evening with his family. At exactly 6:32 p.m., flashing lights appeared in his rearview mirror. A sheriff's SUV eased to a stop mere feet behind him, engine idling as if to proclaim its presence. The veteran acknowledged the signal, guided his car onto the gravel shoulder, turned off the ignition, and lifted his hands to the 10 and 2 positions. Rolling his window down halfway, he kept his gaze forward, calm, respectful, ready to comply. The deputy emerged from the SUV without a greeting, his white uniform crisp against the twilight. His build was solid, his dark sunglasses hiding eyes that bore straight into the veteran's. One hand hovered just above his holstered weapon, an unspoken warning. "You live around here," the deputy barked. The veteran's voice was steady as he confirmed his address. License and registration came the next order, delivered without courtesy. With the composure earned under fire, the veteran reached across the passenger seat for his wallet. As he slid it open to retrieve his documents, he thought protocol was meant to guide us, not to feed suspicion. His mind traced every step he'd learned in the training: remain polite, stay visible, comply fully, while wondering how a simple traffic stop had become a test of his resolve. The officer's hard eyes never left the veteran's face as he barked for papers, accusing him of creeping through the neighborhood like a suspect on the run. With steady hands, the veteran slid open his wallet and presented his driver's license and vehicle registration. "May I ask why I've been stopped?" he said, his tone measured but firm. The deputy offered no explanation, only a sneer that sharpened under the streetlights. Then came the proposition no one could mistake for routine. 5,000 in payage, no ticket, no trouble, he growled, letting the words hang heavy between them. The veteran paused for a moment, eyes steady, and replied with professionalism. "My trip recorder shows 28 men bump here in traffic cameras at the last intersection will confirm it. I'm lawfully driving home." He refused to accept the bribe, placing each document back on the dash with deliberate care. The deputy's smirk curdled into rage. "On this corner, I am the law," he snarled. "No cash means jail, a towed car, and a record you can't erase." Each syllable felt like a gauntlet thrown at the veteran's feet, daring him to step back. Instead, he met the insult with quiet resolve. He recited the officer's badge number, recounted the offer of extortion, and documented every detail in his mind. Even as the deputy's pride ignited into fury, the veteran stood unbowed, his composure a testament to decades of discipline and an unshakable belief that protocol and justice must prevail. In a flash of fury, the deputy drew his PR-24 baton and thundered a blow against the Mercedes headlight. Tempered glass shattered in a spray of crystalline fragments, tumbling across the asphalt like wounded birds. "Now you're obstructing!" he roared, seizing the moment as a public spectacle. Children paused mid-sprint on nearby lawns. A woman watering her azaleas let the hose drip as she watched wide-eyed. A dog walker froze leash slack in hand. Teenagers on porches lifted their phones instinctively. Under the harsh glow of the cruiser's spotlight, the veteran in the rear seat remained unnervingly calm, seated like a seasoned officer on deployment, each insult absorbed and cataloged. Then, almost imperceptibly, he slipped a hand into his vest pocket and produced his smartphone. The soft click of his fingers was the quiet before the storm. Without haste or hysteria, he tapped William, not a plea for personal rescue, but the signal that true backup was en route. The deputy's chest heaved, his pride inflamed by rage and surprise as he realized this was no ordinary driver. Neighbors held their breath as the veteran's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, a soldier's confidence shining through. In that charged instant, the balance of power shifted: a quiet call, a sworn duty, and the promise that justice would arrive sooner than anyone on that street expected. "Call William," the veteran murmured into his phone, voice steady despite the chaos. The deputy's sneer deepened as though the challenge itself was insult enough, until the crackling response came through the handset. "Desmond, are you all right?" The rich baritone belonged unmistakably to the city's police chief, a college friend whose laughter once rang through campus halls. The beat of the deputy's heart hit his palms like a warning drum. Hurt, no, but deeply shaken by the realization he'd misjudged his quarry. For the first time, the deputy truly saw the man in the tinted leather seat posture, unbowed eyes clear and unblinking. This was no ordinary motorist, but a federal judge whose decisions shaped lives, a man whose name carried weight in every courtroom from Lakeville to D.C. Across the street, shoppers paused on their stoops. A mime-like hush fell over the block. The deputy's baton hung limp, the vanquished echo of its violent smack against glass still trembling in the air. His pride, once an armor, turned to lead in his chest. He understood in that frozen moment that his arrogance would not be met with a slap on the wrist, but with the full reckoning of the law. The shattered headlight gleamed angrily under the patrol car's red and blue glow, a glaring testament to his folly. The veteran lowered his phone without haste, the faintest smile playing at his lips. A soldier and a jurist calm beneath every storm, while the deputy's world tilted on its axis, knowing that tonight, authority had a new definition. Seconds later, an unmarked SUV bearing discreet red and blue rooftop lights whipped around the corner, tires squealing against asphalt. The city's police chief strode out, uniform crisp, despite the whirlwind of activity, his face etched with equal parts fury and genuine concern. He squared off with the stunned patrolman, voice low but thunderous, extorting a citizen, smashing personal property, abusing your authority, and letting racial bias guide your actions. This is not policing. It's betrayal of our oath. His words landed like hammers, each syllable reminding the officer that the badge he wore demanded honor or not hate. Without hesitation, the chief keyed his radio, disarm and suspend Officer Ross, Internal Affairs, to respond immediately. At the chief's side, Lieutenant Miller and Detective Rodriguez moved as one, swift and unwavering. Miller grabbed the officer's baton, prying it from his duty belt with deliberate care, while Rodriguez slipped the badge from his leather pouch and unholstered his sidearm. The stunned officer's eyes flickered between disbelief and dawning shame as his instruments of authority were cataloged and packaged for evidence. With steel-click handcuffs, ironic remnants of the very power he'd abused, Miller secured his wrist behind him. The patrolman's uniform jacket hung open, a mute testament to how quickly privilege can shatter when confronted by principle. Onlookers, neighbors who had paused their evening routines, watched in hushed awe as the chief guided the handcuffed officer to a waiting, unmarked cruiser. The quiet submission of a man once intoxicated by impunity spoke louder than any siren. Justice, when backed by integrity, moves with both speed and resolve. As the unmarked SUV's engine rumbled to life, the chief offered a measured nod to the veteran standing nearby, gratitude for standing firm in the face of wrongdoing, and then turned back to oversee the processing of one of his own. In that charged moment, authority was reclaimed by accountability, and the community witnessed that one badge could uphold the law while another could never outrun its consequences. With the officer finally in custody, the chief turned toward the veteran, his expression a blend of contrition and resolve. "I'm deeply sorry," he said, voice steady. "We'll cover every repair, no questions asked, and I'll personally oversee that your vehicle is returned in perfect condition." He stepped back to his cruiser, retrieving the patrol car's dash cam unit. "We'll preserve every frame and make it available to you," he added, ensuring that transparency would define the department's response. That very night, under the hum of fluorescent lights at the Cook County Prosecutor's office, the evidence laid itself bare. Prosecutors assembled traffic camera stills, showing the veteran's lawful progress through the neighborhood contrasted with the officer's sudden, unprovoked aggression. They reviewed the unedited radio transmission in which the patrolman admitted to handling the situation and learned of the extortion demand. Body cam recordings, finally secured and downloaded, captured every tense exchange and the shattering crack of the headlight. Together, these pieces formed an irrefutable mosaic of abuse of authority. Within hours, the prosecutor filed a slate of serious charges: abuse of official power, attempted extortion of a public servant, willful destruction of property, and making threats against a public official. Each count was supported by multiple forms of documentation, from eyewitness videos to the officer's own admission. As cases of this nature so often hinge on credibility, the officer's own words and actions left little room for doubt. Word of the indictment spread rapidly through local news outlets and social media feeds, prompting a mix of relief and sober reflection. Community leaders praised the swift action, noting that the system, though imperfect, still worked when integrity guided its operations. Meanwhile, the veteran received assurances from his agency that he would not bear a single cost for the ordeal. As midnight approached and the city settled into quiet vigilance, one truth stood out unmistakably. Accountability could arrive as swiftly as injustice provided, that honorable people refused to remain silent. The courtroom fell silent as the trial opened, the evidence arrayed like battle plans. Prosecutors presented traffic camera stills that showed the veteran's sedan hugging the speed limit, then the officer's cruiser swooping in. Body cam footage played the crack of PR-24 against tempered glass ringing in everyone's ears. Radio logs confirmed the officer's own words handling the situation, demanding cash, threatening jail. Witnesses described the veteran's unwavering composure as bystanders recorded the unfolding injustice. When it was the veteran's turn to testify, he spoke with the clarity and restraint of a seasoned commander. He calmly detailed each staged accusation from weaving to creeping, and every act of aggression, reciting badge and incident numbers as though briefing his own command staff. His voice never wavered. He did not raise his tone nor show anger, but recounted the facts with the precision of a logbook entry. Jurors watched the dashcam stills alongside the veteran's testimony, comparing the smooth cruise through the neighborhood with the officer's sudden, unprovoked violence. They saw the headlights shatter and heard the officer's threats echo through the recorded exchanges. Defense counsel fumbled to explain away the baton strike as a procedural escalation, but the evidence spoke louder. After deliberating for just a few hours, the jury returned a verdict that resounded beyond the courtroom: guilty on counts of attempted extortion of a public servant, felony destruction of property exceeding $500, and threatening a public official. The presiding judge pronounced a sentence that underscored the gravity of the betrayal: years in state prison, significant fines, and permanent loss of badge and pension. For the department, it was a watershed moment, the clear message that abuse of power carried real consequences. For the community, it was vindication that justice could prevail when integrity and accountability guided the process. And for the veteran, it was a sober reminder that even those sworn to uphold the law must be held to its highest standard. When the gavel fell, the officer received an 8-year prison sentence and was ordered to pay $65,000 in restitution, $15,000 to cover the luxury headlight replacement, and $50,000 for the emotional distress he inflicted. Stripped of his badge and pension, he watched his career unravel. His marriage quickly followed suit, ending in divorce as the shame proved too heavy a burden for his family to bear. Former colleagues crossed the street rather than meet his gaze, and the precinct he once patrolled became a reminder of a promise betrayed. Across town, the veteran faced a different reckoning. Offered the $50,000 emotional damage award, he chose instead to amplify justice for others. The full sum went to a legal aid charity dedicated to representing victims of police misconduct. In doing so, he transformed his own ordeal into a beacon of hope, ensuring that those without rank or privilege could access the same protections he had fought to secure. Local leaders hailed the outcome as proof that the rule of law applies to everyone regardless of uniform. Community groups inspired by his generosity launched fundraising campaigns of their own, raising awareness and resources for legal support services. Churches hosted prayer vigils for healing. Civic clubs organized training sessions on citizens' rights during traffic stops. In the years that followed, the case became a touchstone for reform. Police academies added mandatory modules on bias and de-escalation, and every patrol car in the county was equipped with dual-view cameras. At training conferences, veterans and civilians alike cited the veteran's choice to give away his award as a model of grace under pressure and the power of turning personal injustice into collective good. Though scars remained for both the wronged veteran and the disgraced officer, the community emerged stronger, bound by the conviction that accountability and compassion must go hand in hand. In that sense, the sentence was not simply an end, but a new beginning, one in which real justice proved its capacity not only to punish wrongdoing, but also to foster renewal. In the weeks that followed, the Lakeville Police Department moved swiftly to rebuild trust and demonstrate real change. Every officer now attends mandatory bias awareness workshops where seasoned trainers guide frank discussions about assumptions, respect, and the power of empathy. Civilian review panels, once a distant promise, meet monthly, giving community members a direct voice in evaluating complaints and recommending discipline. Filing a grievance no longer means navigating labyrinthine paperwork. Simplified, user-friendly forms are available at precincts, libraries, and online, with staff on hand to assist anyone uneasy with technology. Meanwhile, every patrol car and body-worn camera begins uploading footage automatically to a secure server, ensuring no moments vanish into the ether. When an incident arises, internal affairs referrals have tripled. Officers now understand that accountability isn't optional, it's integral to public safety. Grassroots groups, from neighborhood associations to veterans clubs, monitor the reforms with vigilant optimism, holding town hall meetings to share experiences and track progress. Yet amid this hopeful momentum, one question continues to echo: would an everyday motorist without a federal judge's name or a decorated career ever have inspired such rapid, comprehensive action? The answer remains uncertain. For many, this case stands as proof that change can happen when power is checked. For others, it's a stark reminder that justice still rests too often on a citizen's connections. As autumn leaves began to drift through Hyde Park and commuters braced for colder days, Lakeville found itself at a crossroads. The steps taken against wrongdoing were bold, but sustaining them would demand constant vigilance from both police and public. In living rooms and coffee shops across the city, neighbors continue to ask, can these reforms endure beyond headlines and hashtags? Will every driver, regardless of race, status, or fortune, one day know that on Lakeville streets, respect and fairness will never again depend on who they are or whom they know? From this story, we learn that regardless of rank or status, every citizen deserves to be treated fairly and with respect. Power is meant to protect justice, not to be abused. The protagonist's courageous composure in the face of injustice and steadfast insistence on due process demonstrate the power of personal discipline and legal knowledge. Were I in that position, my next steps would involve working closely with oversight bodies, from civilian review boards to human rights organizations, to draft more transparent protocols for every traffic stop, ensuring that every individual gathers full evidence, from video recordings to official reports. I would also push for bias awareness, training for law enforcement officers, propose enhanced legal penalties for abuse of authority and coercion, and advocate for comprehensive, multicultural education in schools and communities. As for whether racism will end by 2050, the answer hinges on our collective effort if we continuously educate future generations about respecting differences, refuse to tolerate discriminatory behavior, and constantly improve our legal systems with independent oversight. The hope of a race-blind society may one day materialize. Yet history teaches us that racism does not vanish through laws alone. It requires empathy and true understanding to permeate every family, every classroom, and every institution. Therefore, even if 2050 marks a turning point, we must maintain vigilance, persist in open dialogue, and steadfastly challenge any remaining prejudices to genuinely transform our vision of equality into reality.